The night air was heavy with salt and the faint scent of diesel from idle boat engines. Waves lapped rhythmically against the wooden piers of East Point Marina, their sound mingling with the distant laughter from a nearby waterfront bar. The Hamptons, at its summer peak, felt like a bubble, insulated, pristine, and untouched by the troubles of the world. By day, the marina was alive with motion. Children racing along the boardwalk, deckhands scrubbing teak decks until they gleamed, and well-heeled couples in crisp linen strolling to late lunches. By night, it became something else entirely. A place of shadows and reflections, where champagne bottles clinked softly on million-dollar yachts and conversations drifted over still water like perfume. But at 12:17 a.m., that illusion shattered. Footsteps pounded across the dock. A man's voice cut through the stillness, raw with panic. "Help! Somebody help!" Cabin lights flicked on. Doors creaked open. Owners of neighboring yachts stepped out, bleary-eyed, confused. Some thought there might be a fire. Others feared an intruder. What they would soon discover was neither. On one of the most exclusive yachts in the marina, a young woman lay unconscious. No movement, no breath, no warning. And within hours, the name Elena Marlowe would be on the lips of every person in East Point, and soon enough in headlines across the Atlantic. Elena Marlowe was 33, founder of the high-end swimwear label Azure and Ash. Friends described her as magnetic, the kind of person who could walk into a crowded room and have half the people wondering who she was before she'd even said a word. She had a presence that wasn't loud but lingered, like the aftertaste of fine wine. That Thursday evening, she'd spent the early hours at a small dinner with friends in the Hamptons. The restaurant was a converted boathouse, its windows open to let the sea breeze drift in. They'd shared oysters, grilled sea bass, and 2 bottles of wine. She laughed easily, talked about her upcoming boutique launch, and pulled up photos on her phone of the new summer line. Her fiancé, still in Manhattan for work, had called around 9. She told him she'd be home by midnight, maybe earlier. They'd been apart for 2 weeks, and she promised they'd have a quiet weekend together once he arrived. Then came the invitation. A man in his 60s, owner of a gleaming 54-foot yacht moored at East Point Marina, was hosting a small gathering. Elena had met him once before at a charity gala. The two shared acquaintances in the fashion and luxury goods circles, but weren't close. Still, a nightcap on a beautiful yacht in the Hamptons didn't feel unusual in her line of work. Elena reassured her fiancé, "Just an hour or 2. I'll take an Uber back." She arrived at the marina in a light summer dress, her hair tied loosely, the kind of effortless elegance she was known for. Witnesses recall her stepping aboard around 10:15 p.m., greeted by the yacht's owner and 2 others who were already on deck. Music played softly from inside the cabin. Glasses clinked. From the dock, it looked like nothing more than another luxurious summer night. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive outside of that yacht. Around midnight, the yacht's deck lights still glowed. A soft hum of conversation drifted over the water, until it didn't. One neighbor, aboard his own boat just 30 feet away, heard a sudden commotion. The sharp scrape of a chair, hurried footsteps, a voice shouting something unintelligible. Then the unmistakable cry for help. The yacht's owner appeared on the dock barefoot, his shirt half-buttoned, his voice cracking as he banged on the hull of a neighboring boat. "She's not breathing. Please." 2 guests from nearby vessels jumped into action. One was a retired EMT. They followed him back aboard the yacht, where Elena lay sprawled on a cushioned bench in the main salon. Her skin was pale, her lips faintly blue. CPR began immediately. Someone called 911. Within minutes, the faint wail of sirens pierced the night air. Emergency crews boarded the yacht at 12:29 a.m. Despite their efforts, Elena was pronounced dead before sunrise. Her fiancé would later say that when the police called him, he thought it was a mistake. They said her name, but it didn't feel real. It still doesn't. Elena's story began thousands of miles away, in a small coastal town in Western Ireland. The sea was in her blood. Her father had been a fisherman. Her mother ran a seaside cafe. Summers were spent swimming in cold Atlantic waters, wrapped in towels while sketching swimsuit designs in the margins of her notebooks. At 21, she moved to Dublin to study fashion. By 25, she was in New York City, chasing a dream that was both intoxicating and unforgiving. The early years were brutal. She worked double shifts at cafes to fund her designs. She sewed prototypes in the cramped corner of a shared apartment. More than once, she considered giving up. She told friends she often cried herself to sleep from exhaustion. But in 2019, she launched Azure and Ash, a swimwear label blending high fashion with sustainable materials. It caught the attention of influencers and stylists. By 2024, her pieces had been featured in boutique resorts from Santorini to St. Bart's. There were personal hurdles, a quiet divorce in her late 20s, a legal dispute with a former business partner, but Elena was resilient. In spring 2025, she became engaged again, and her brand was preparing for its first flagship boutique in Soho that fall. She was right there, a close friend said, right on the edge of everything she'd worked for finally paying off. The morning after her death, police released a brief statement. There are no immediate signs of foul play. The cause of death remains undetermined. A full autopsy and toxicology screening will be conducted. The phrasing left room for interpretation and speculation. Privately, Elena's friends were uneasy. Why had she been alone on that yacht so late? Who were the other guests? And why, hours later, was there still so little information? The toxicology report, the one document that could offer answers, would take weeks. Until then, all anyone had were questions. The yacht's owner spoke to police that night, then again the following day. His identity was never released publicly, and he made no statement to the press. According to those familiar with the marina, he was a seasonal presence, older, wealthy, well-connected. Some described him as a gentleman, others as a mystery. What was certain? Whatever had happened aboard his yacht, he had been the last known person to see Elena alive. Back in Ireland, Elena's mother gave a short, trembling statement to local reporters. "We just want answers. We're not here to accuse anyone. We just need to know what happened to our girl." Her family began exploring the idea of hiring a private investigator. They feared that without public pressure, the case might quietly fade away. The Hamptons is no stranger to whispered scandals. Within days, theories began circulating. A medical episode, a drug reaction, an accident nobody wanted to talk about. Longtime locals knew the pattern. Summer tragedies were often swept aside when they involved the wealthy and well-connected. But some couldn't shake the feeling that Elena's death was different, that it wouldn't just disappear. Friends began organizing small memorials, both in New York and back home in Ireland. At one in Manhattan's West Village, candles lined the steps of a boutique where she had once dreamed of stocking her designs. Photos of Elena, laughing on a Greek island, sketching at a cafe, hugging her mother on a windswept pier, stood as reminders of the life she had lived and the future stolen from her. Meanwhile, at East Point Marina, the yacht where she had spent her final hours remained docked, its curtains drawn. Some said it hadn't moved since that night. Weeks later, the water sparkled under a perfect August sun. The marina bustled again. To a casual visitor, nothing seemed amiss. But to those who knew the story, one thing was undeniable. Some shadows never leave, no matter how bright the day. For now, the only thing we know for certain is this. Elena Marlowe stepped aboard a yacht one summer night and never came home. The ocean keeps her secrets. The marina keeps its whispers. And somewhere, the truth waits, in a file, in a memory, in a test result not yet released. Until then, one question remains: what really happened that night?